So welcome to the second edition of This Is Us 2020. Today we have Jacqui Gavin, who is currently Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Advisor for Cambridgeshire Fire and Rescue. Jacqui, welcome to our second edition of This Is Us. Welcome, welcome. So tell me more about yourself, Jacqui. You know, what you do. You've provided a real voice for the transgender community, not only from a personal perspective, but very much from a workplace perspective as well. So really lovely to tell the audience, you know, who you are, what you do, and on what you do within the trans community to help them.
So I suppose the best way to describe it is I'm an older person, should I say, but in that kind of context, at 52 years old. As someone who's been around the block a number of years, I have spent, I would say, the vast majority of my life trying to create, as you've just rightly said, a voice for the trans community, not just on a personal level, but also on a working perspective. And the way I've tried to do this is, first and foremost, using my own lived experience. My lived experience, obviously, as being trans, has been for, dare I say it, near on 40 years. But beyond that kind of aspect, to me, I also wanted to then take it into the workplace. And I was given, I suppose, a huge opportunity when I joined the civil service back in 2009, where literally one day I'm working as a state pension operator, working out of Warrington Pension Centre, and literally I joined the civil service not because I wanted to, but because I literally had been made redundant just probably about 12 months before, just as the financial crash happened. And it was one of the only jobs literally I could find. But I have to say, DWP, who I was working for at the time, were phenomenal. The second Perm Secretary, a gentleman called Terry Moran, approached me and said, "We know all about you, and we need your support in really driving forward the the agenda for trans people specifically," because they knew that the legislation that was going to be changing, the new Equality Act was coming in, which was meaning that there had to be much more changes. So as an employer, the civil service was one of those organisations that was slightly further behind, although it was the kind of place that you would expect would be further ahead. So I spent a huge amount of time working with DWP, first of all, as a department, to make their policies more up to date, and then taking that template and widening that out to the rest of the civil service.
And that's really important, I think, is in anything that we do, in any project we deliver, any job that we have, it's all about that lived-in experience. Yeah. And I think that really helps, because then you know what it's like to be a transgender person, and you know what it's like to have the kind of barriers that people face within a workplace environment. But then you can help employers break down those barriers almost, because you have that lived-in personal experience. It kind of like brings me on to your current role, like Cambridgeshire Fire and Rescue. Mm-hmm. And what have you've been doing with them over the past year? What kind of barriers people within the LGBT community face, and how you've been able to break down those barriers or improve diversity and inclusion within the Cambridgeshire Fire and Rescue?
So I think the best way to describe Cambridgeshire Fire and Rescue is very traditional. It's very white, it's very male, it's very stale, if you pardon the expression. And it's about getting people in that organisation who really want to do something about it. I mean, they are a fantastic organisation, and I always say this, they are a nice place to work, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. I think what I've tried to get them to understand is that diversity and inclusion isn't just a thing, it's not the magic bullet. It's about how you embed diversity and inclusion into the organisation. It's how you bring about that positive change by bringing it in as a feeling. And there's been a huge amount of respect right from the chief all the way through the organisation down to the new starting firefighter or the new starting support member of staff. So it's about taking that whole thing and really bringing it together. So using my lived experience as trans, but not just seeing it about trans, seeing it about all the characteristics and then some. but also it's how are we as an organisation not just received by our public, because obviously as a frontline blue light service, we provide a service that is usually for an emergency of some sort of description. That's what we're there for, whether it be a fire, whether it be a water rescue, whether it be an incident on a motorway, you name it. It's that kind of aspect. People will have that image of this is what the fire service does, but it's about giving that understanding that, you know what, we're much more besides. So as I say, yes, this is how we're received, and occasionally we need to arrange for, say, I don't know, using Dogsthorpe Fire Station as an example up in Peterborough, getting that a watch or two watches going out to spend time at a mosque and spending time in that community, understanding what it is to have that belief and the way they do things so they can build that better relationship. And using, well, and it's something what we call positive action. Positive action is very much defined within the Equality Act under sections 158 and 159 of the Act. And it allows the opportunity for us as an organisation to, I suppose, go out and have those conversations, so that allows us to be able to be better placed to try and attract talent into this, into the fire service. And to me, particularly when I look at the makeup of the fire service in Cambridgeshire at the moment, being very white, very male, I want to get diverse groups into that organisation, because when you've got a diverse workforce, you have a much more of an opportunity to really make a difference, because when you've got things all looking the same, people will do things exactly the same way, and we need that diversity of thought as well. Whereas I see it's much wider than that, as I say, so it's about the perception, but also it's about the reception. How do we get people to come to us as well, rather than us always chasing forward and saying, well, let's go to the mosque because that's the nice thing to do. No, it's about getting the local imam and his council to come to the fire station and say, this is what you do as well. So it's those kind of cross conversations.
Absolutely. A couple of things there, actually. I totally agree, is that you say it's a sort of diversity, inclusion, equality is right down from the chief downwards. And that's so important, because if the main person, the head or the owner or the CEO or the MD is not on board, then it's very difficult to break down any sort of barrier in any situation. Mm-hmm. And another thing which I think is really great that I've kind of picked up on is that you actually go into the community and understand that there are different cultures, and each culture within a community is totally different. So, you know, for example, in an Asian community, you have Indians from India, you have Muslims from Pakistan or from Bangladesh or from the Middle East. So although they might be the same religion, actually their culture is kind of different, because they all come from different areas, and each area has their own idiosyncrasy or way of doing things or way of life. So that's great that you're actually going out into the community and actually bringing the community back into the fire station as well. So it's very much a two-way communication. So it's very much about a partnership, which is so important. So being an LGBT person, just generally within the workplace, what kind of barriers do they face, do you think?
I think in today's world, we are a lot better. There is no denying there are still inconsistencies, as I would put it, across different organisations. I mean, you look at the major PLCs, I think nearly all of them would say that they have got some sort of process or policy. But what about the smaller Joe Blogs of the organisations as well, where they still possibly think maybe I can just forget about it and I'll just deal with it when it happens. So it's about, I suppose it is a lot better. Can we do more? Yes, we can do more, but I think it's got to be a two-way thing. Lately, I've personally feel that there's been almost like a them and us kind of attitude, and there's also been a them and us even within the LGBT side. You're not gay enough, you're not trans enough, you're not this enough. And suddenly when you look on social media, there almost seems to be a war, as I would describe it, going on. And I think we owe it to ourselves to not just be making about the same people again and again. I think for me personally, I've seen myself when I've been speaking at events and I look out on the audience and I think, well, why am I speaking to the same people again and again? You already know my story. Let's get the people who, yeah, they may have heard of what it is to be trans, but they don't really understand. Yeah, they may have heard about what it is to be gay, but they still don't fully understand. We've got to really start to be able to utilize the power of everybody, the power of the storytelling, because no one story is the same. No one story is unique. We need to get everybody to understand that everybody has a story, whoever they are, regardless of who they are, and stop making it about individuals are LGBT and they do this job. It should be more about they do this job. Oh, and by the way, they happen to be LGBT. That's the kind of key thing that needs to really start happening. We've almost gone the opposite extreme to where we were many years ago, where we didn't have the legislation, we didn't have policies and processes that supported the individual. Whereas now we've got these policies in place, but we now put, yes, it's about role modeling, don't get me wrong, but stop making it about this person is trans and by the way they do this. Make it more about this is for this person, they do this fantastic job, and by the way they are LGBT, whatever that may be. And that's where we need to really, really start celebrating together, much wider, and not the same people again and again.
You've really hit the nail on the head, actually, and that's the reason why I set up This Is Us conference, and this is the reason why I actually set it up in Milton Keynes, because I feel that there's a lack of diversity, there's a lack of understanding, and actually a lack of awareness in Milton Keynes. The city is such a growing city, it's growing really fast. They actually do need to be more, organisations need to be more aware of diversity, of inclusion and equality as a whole, as you say, not only just LGBT, but whatever people identify as, because it doesn't actually matter what they identify as, what colour they are, what gender they are. If they can do a job, then they can do that job.
Absolutely.
Whether you are LGBT or person of colour or anything else shouldn't really matter when it comes to employment, to recruitment, to promotion, or actually doing a job. Because if you as a person can do a job, because that's what the common thread is, we are all human beings, we are all people.
Absolutely.
And that's so important. If we can do a job, then let's be able to do that job. Give us that opportunity. Don't put barriers in our place, or don't say, oh, you know, they're Indian or they're LGBT or they're whoever, or let's just give them a job just because we want to tick a box. No, it's not about ticking boxes. It's about the core of diversity within your organisation and actually believing in it and actually stop creating barriers. And that brings me on to the event a bit more, because you've actually been my supporter for 3 years running, because it's going to be the third year. A mentor, my supporter, my guide, you know, my friend, and obviously I'm so grateful. So you have been chairing the event for 2 years running now, and of course now we're in our third year.
Yes.
Tell us more about, from your perspective, about This Is Us, why it's important, why people should attend, and your role as chair.
So, I mean, let me cover off each of those parts individually. I mean, as a chair, I just see myself allowing for the opportunity for the conversation to flow. And when you make that conversation flow rather than sort of making it quite rigid, it becomes quite boring. Let's be honest, we've all been to those conferences where we've attended and it's like, when's it due to end? But I think the great thing about the This Is Us conference is it's hearing from both the presenters and the audience as well. It's a two-way thing and it really, really works really, really well. I think we've also got to the point where now the more and more opportunity that we start to reach out, as you said yourself just now, Milton Keynes is a growing area. It's a huge opportunity. It's part of the corridor between Cambridge and Oxford, which, let's be honest, is the real hub for industry or business, etc., etc., etc. And to me, to see the people that have come back year after year over the last couple of years, and I hope they will come back again this year, but also how we've expanded, not just by looking at things solely through the LGBT lens, but looking at it through the diversity lens, about that much wider aspect, the authenticity, looking at the mental health issues. When we had Michelle Partington come last year, looking at it from a recruitment perspective, looking at it from specifically around characteristics. It's about what you as an individual, regardless of where you sit within an organisation, whether you're a leader, a chief exec, an owner, or whether you're somebody that's trying to make the difference from a diversity and inclusion perspective, or whether you just have a genuinely interest about breaking down the barriers associated with diversity and inclusion, because still to this day we have that difficulty of breaking down those barriers. And to me, it's about hearing those lived experiences, it's hearing those conversations, it's hearing what is actually business doing about it. Last year we had Microsoft talking about those kind of things. So that to me is a really, really plus thing that needs to actually happen. And I want businesses to know that they can come along and share their own stories, share their own successes, because that's where we are as a world right now with COVID-19 impacting on us. It's showing that if we don't do things jointly, if we don't do things together, then we are going to be in this difficult situation. When COVID first hit, everybody went into blind panic thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to interact with my audience? You know what? This conference can do that. It can give you that platform to be able to know who your key people are in your network. So come along, join the party, join the whole day. It's a 2-day event this year. We've moved from 1 day where we sometimes, let's be honest, we got to the end of the day and thought we've maybe packed in too much. But now we've actually expanded that over to the 2 days, which will allow for people, whether they just want to come for one specific thing that they have an interest in, or across the whole 2 days, to learn what diversity is. Because diversity is changing. It's not just about this characteristic, that characteristic. Diversity is everything and everyone.
Absolutely. And also, I've kept it due to kind of, under 100 people, because I want that interaction. I didn't want, 300 people sitting in the conference room with, 20 speakers going up and down like yo-yos. There's no interaction there. I want people to be able to work in small groups with other people that they don't know, and also really have that interaction and that networking time with the speakers. So that's really, really important, is to have that two-way conversation. And that's worked really, really well in the past 2 years, when we've actually broken them down into smaller kind of groups and syndicates and workshops, whether it's on the table or in separate rooms. They actually have that opportunity to actually really get into the depth of what the subject is, which is great. And for me, it's a really exciting journey to see it grow over 2 years now. And I can obviously I curate it, produce it, look for the speakers, but it's the speakers who actually make the difference. It's the speakers who actually come and present and are at the heart of diversity and inclusion within their field. And that's what's another thing which is really important about this is it's all about people being at the heart of the diversity and inclusion arena. Really important.
I think what you've also done as well, Meena, sorry to cut across you there, but I think what you've also done is you've allowed those individuals who've come to it, the conference as well, to bring their own aspect to it as well. And I think that's worked really well, rather than again have something that is almost like staged. It allows for the authenticity, because people are able to bring their own aspect of what they're trying to achieve in their own organisations or businesses, etc., etc. That has been a huge, huge plus to the whole conference as well.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Appreciate your support. So it kind of brings us to more or less the end of our conversation. A couple of things. I see some beautiful pictures behind you of a lovely photogenic little dog there. So tell us more about who that is.
So Zoom, yes, Zoom is our West Highland Terrier. She's just shy of 2 years old. She came into our lives partly for me, but partly for both of us, me and my partner Isabel, because for me personally, I suffer from anxiety, and she's been a real wonderful little addition because she knows when I'm feeling anxious. She knows when I feel that I may have one of my migraine attacks or something like that. And as you can tell by the picture, she is a poser, and she knows she is a poser. She loves to talk to us occasionally, and I mean talk to us. And she also likes to play. But she's been a wonderful addition. In fact, both those two ladies have been a wonderful addition to my life. And I feel incredibly privileged to have them both in my life.
Oh, that's so lovely, because I think it's really important, just for you to sort of bring out your own kind of personality and what makes you happy. Because as I said, it's all about people. It's all about having that heart and that authenticity. So one very last question is, what's your favourite song and why?
You're asking somebody who probably has a whole repertoire of favourite pieces of music, but if there was one piece, it would probably be Labi Sifri, Something Inside So Strong. And the reason why I would probably choose that piece of music is you just need to listen to the meaning of it. And the reason it was written in the time of the apartheid era. Nelson Mandela and his imprisonment on Robben Island. And when we think about it, if we really have a passion, if we really have a hunger to break down barriers, then we can also all do it. It's about having that belief inside you and that strength of character to carry on, because we're talking here in the middle of Mental Health Awareness Week as well. And too many people let go, give up their dreams, give up, don't let go. Find that strength inside you. If you can't find it within you yourself, reach out. And again, I'm going to talk about the conference, because this conference gives you that sort of opportunity to be able to reach out, to find that strength. When you think that you're going up against that battle alone and you're not able to achieve, guess what? We all feel that way sometimes. And dig that strength out. And as I say, whenever I hear that piece of music come on the radio, I've just got to stop everything I'm doing and just listen to the words, and it just sums up what life's about to me. Find the strength, carry on.
Amazing. It really resonates well with you in terms of you finding that strength within you to bring out a voice for the trans community, but also having that kind of strength in actually reaching out to you and saying, I have this event, what do you think? So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you in October.
Anytime.